And hello and welcome to the Metabolic Balance ANZ podcast. I am delighted to start a new session on with our expert panel. So I put together the panel from some of our fabulous practitioners here in Australia and New Zealand, and details of all of their qualifications are all in the podcast show notes. So I'd love you to check out there, but I'd love to just get straight into the questions that we're going to tackle in today's episode. So one of the questions we actually had from our first session was, what is metabolic balance? Now, this is a question that could be seen on two levels. First of all, what is the program, the Metabolic Balance program? But actually, it's also, what is metabolic balance? What does this really mean in the body? And that's the bit that I really want to start off with. So, Heather, what would you say metabolic balance in the body really means?
Oh, it's the optimization of basically the utilization of glucose. And we broadly say that the metabolic program is a tool to address insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is every year more and more and more disease processes are being attributed to insulin resistance and then becoming glucose issues. So I see metabolic balance as having good insulin sensitivity, having good glucose disposal, and therefore having good cellular health, because there's so many negative impacts for both insulin resistance and poor glucose metabolism. And the way the program works is it does dramatically improve that sensitivity, and then all those other pathways in the body, the detox pathways work better, the metabolism works better, the hormone production works better. And at the end of the day, insulin is just a hormone, and all our hormones are connected. So if you have something that works on that, which is really number one Western world issue, is this insulin resistance, then the whole body is going to work better. And that's how we prevent chronic disease, and that's how we prevent early aging, which is what at the end we're trying to do. It's a life hack to try and undo what our Western lifestyle is doing to us all the time.
Yeah, fantastic. Alex, what would you say? Would you add on to that?
Absolutely, 100% what Heather said, but taking a little bit of a different route. When your body is in metabolic balance, like when your body's balanced metabolically, your body basically uses all nutrients and energy, also known as glucose, from your diet. Okay? So you're supporting all bodily functions, as Heather said, without that excess fat storage from insulin resistance. So it also means that the nutrients are used the most effectively to decrease oxidative stress. So that's reactive oxygen species or free radicals, oxidative stress. It's been bandied about for decades now. What we have to realize is that oxidative stress is actually an end result of metabolic processes in our body, because we use oxygen to metabolize glucose. So basically, what I see, furthering on from what Heather said, when we are balanced metabolically, not only are we less insulin resistant, but we can mop up those reactive oxygen species, therefore decreasing inflammation throughout the body, mind, body, soul.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we see can be really manifesting, coming out when people are eating holistically and metabolically, that all of the body processes actually start to really kick in and start working properly again. Katie, what would you say that you see?
I think what Alex and Heather says, I can't really say that I would expand too much on that, except to say that I think it's underappreciated how much all the hormones interact with insulin. So there's this concept of, listening to that, some people may think, oh, well, I don't have anything wrong with my insulin levels, so this program's not what for me. But we know that insulin is just, a bit of a dance partner with everything else, all the other hormones in the body as well. So we really have to address it. if we want to address everything else as well. And that's why metabolic balance has got such a good reputation and sees good results on a hormonal level, not just concerning insulin, but concerning, all the other hormones as well.
Yeah. Because our hormones are those messenger signals, the messengers that literally interact all of our cells on a constant, daily fluctuating basis. And I think it's a lot of the time it's underestimated the impact that they truly have on energy production, on all the organ body health. So Karen, would you come in and add in to this?
Yeah. So again, completely agree with what everybody has said. Probably the way that I look at it and I explain it is that metabolism is really responsible for everything that we do. It's responsible for our hormone production, weight gain, weight loss, heat production, movement. So kind of all of those metabolic processes within the body over time, they just get the mixed messages. They don't get what they need to help them function correctly. And what we're doing with metabolic balance is rebalancing the body, working on that insulin resistance, but providing the body with the nutrients it needs to make sure that those functions can start to work again. It's just like a cog, like in a clock it's the one little twist that doesn't go the right way and it has a knock-on effect of everything else.
Yeah. So if we were then to take the other side of the coin of what this question, what is metabolic balance? So we're sort of thinking, well, what is the metabolic balance program then? If you are going to give that real explanation about what it is to you as a practitioner and what you're answering a client's question when they say, well, what is metabolic balance then? What do you say, Heather? Coming back to you.
Yeah, look, I try to keep it really basic, like an elevator pitch to people. And I just say, this is a program that's individualized for you. That's the number one key difference in this and nearly everything else that's out there. So we're going to send you off for some blood work. Your blood's going to be collected. All of that information plus your biometrics, we're going to take all your measurements, your likes and dislikes and your health conditions are all going to be uploaded to Germany. And that will send back an eating plan that's just right for you where you are now. And we will coach you through that plan. And during that journey, we're going to see all of these transformations in general health, in inflammation, in weight, if that's what's required, in hormone function, energy, sleep. All those good things happen as a result of using a program that is actually calculated just for you. And I really emphasize that every plan is different and that is the key difference is that it's not a generic one size fits all. It has been modified.
Yeah. And Katie, what's your take on that question?
I think metabolic balance is giving your body exactly what it needs and then it performing in a way that it's supposed to, really, to keep it really simple. So when you give it exactly the things that it needs, then people have the energy that they always feel like they're lacking. They have the clarity of thought. They have the, spring in their step. They have the balanced moods that they want. So that's really what the essence of metabolic balance is to me and clients, I guess, who've done the program.
Yeah. Yeah. Karen, would you add to any of that?
The way that I explain metabolic balance to new clients coming in is that it's a food program that looks at you individually. So it's looking at what your body is telling us at that time. It's really kind of going down to looking at what your blood markers are telling us, what your history tells us, and then it's just providing your body with the right fuel to get you back into balance. And it's not comparing you to anybody else. It's really about you and your journey and using good whole foods to be able to do that. We take the nutrients out of foods to help your body balance.
And just thinking about that, Alex, I kind of want to rephrase this again for you, because you've got so much experience as well. I mean, all of our expert panel have, but you came to metabolic balance sort of at the end or coming towards the final years of being in practice with clients. So you've used an awful lot of different techniques and interventions and diets and all that kind of stuff. So what would you sort of add on anything that's like shows how metabolic balance is different?
That's really interesting, Cherry. Absolutely. So totally agree what the other three awesome people said. Like it's so bespoke. This is such a bespoke program. And I've been in practice a long time, and I've tried, you taught something in college and, as a nutritionist and then functional medicine. And I don't know if you recall, Cherry, but we had lots of chats about you saying, metabolic balance would be very great for my very busy clinic. And I go, oh, yeah, once I've done my Swiss bio, once I've done my functional medicine, all this. And then I don't know if you actually recall, I apologized for not listening earlier. Because you probably could have saved half an adrenal gland of mine, because it actually makes a little bit, because it's right there for you. So this program, it's so good getting when you have a patient, when you've been in, we all know, when we've been in practice for a long time, we get those patients, as Heather just said off camera, or off microphone, we get the ones that everyone's given up on. And you try these plans, you spend an inordinate amount of time creating a nutrition program for them, but it's not bespoke. So MB is just so individualized. It's for that individual at that time that will carry them forward, because we know it's the most successful fat loss program long term. Because if you look at all the ones, oh, yeah, she lost this much in 3 months, because then it all goes to hell in a handbasket, as we know. And it was so good, Cherry, to now finally think, oh, my goodness, I think I probably emailed about 50 clients, said, I've got what you need now. I've got what you need, because this program's going to be just for you. It's just food. It's just food, but it's so nutritionally balanced. It's going to fix it well, or balance all those processes we've just been talking about. It not only saved so many of my clients, but it actually saved me in practice from being totally burnt out. And because we all want to do the right thing by our patients. So if you say, okay, well, I think you better from the keto diet or whatever, or this, and then you think, oh, that's not working. And metabolic balance, because it's just food and there's really no hard rules other than you eat the foods that are on your list and in what order, it's so easy to do.
Yeah. From my point of view, I really say metabolic balance is just getting the body back into working at its optimal, all the processes optimally. And then we sit back and see what the body does with that. Because it's not about forcing the body into doing anything. We don't, often there seems to be this idea that we need to force the body into losing weight, or we need these drastic programs that will just change things overnight. Actually, what we're doing is we get the body healthy, and then, I say we sit back and see what happens with that. So we create whatever the potential optimal health is and balance. And this is where I say MB has the reputation of losing weight, but it's not about weight. It's not about that weight loss. It's about getting the balance back so the body naturally stabilizes itself around a good healthy weight for that person, which can be different to what some kind of tabular research paper says it should be. It could actually be, whatever's right for that person. That's really how I see it.
But we're always going to have this issue with nutrition, that research is going to keep coming out saying different things, because we're all different. So when we have a subject, we're not testing nutrition on the same people all the time. So this is why some people will always say, well, metabolic balance is wrong because this research paper said X, Y, Z. Well, MB is sort of like doing a research paper on that specific person, so it is right for that person.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think it really brings us into the other thing I wanted to, the next topic that I thought we could unpack, and this is actually the pathology values, because we, in our world, most people have had a blood test done at some point in their life. Most adults have had blood tests done. And often they have a blood test done when they're feeling, a bit ropey, or they're feeling tired, they're feeling, exhausted, or they've got some kind of thing, problem happening. But the blood test can come back with the doctor saying, yeah, no, it's all fine. Yeah, nothing wrong. and actually, there is something wrong because you don't feel good. So, Heather, what would you say about the standard reference ranges that are on blood tests?
Well, I think I learned this years ago that there's standard reference ranges and there's optimal. And what was explained to me is that a standard reference range is based on 1,000 people and the bell curve, and that they get what is vitamin D for 1,000 people. Okay, some will be low, some will be high. So this is normal. That normal doesn't mean optimal. And vitamin D is a classic because the reference range is reduced in Australia to what it was years ago. It used to flag as abnormal if your vitamin D was under 75. Now most labs only flag it abnormal if your vitamin D is under 50. But we know from all the research that comes out that optimal vitamin D really is around 100. So we're only in Australia saying people have got low vitamin D when they're half their optimal range. So I think that as functional medicine and experienced practitioners, that's what we're looking at. We're nuancing and looking through those bloods and saying, well, this thyroid stimulating hormone mightn't be above 4, but it's 3.5. So if we leave this for another year, it is going to be what's medically deemed as underactive. So we want to intervene before it gets there. And ferritin levels are the other classic. People will look at ferritin and the doctor says, like, my iron's fine, everything's fine, but, their ferritin's 30. And, it does depend on which article you read, but most people agree that optimal ferritin should be around 70. So it's if you've got 4 or 5 of those markers in your blood that are in the bell curve, but they're not optimal, then you put that, if all of those things take 5% off your energy, your ferritin not quite optimal, your thyroid slightly underactive, your vitamin D slightly low, and you put all of those together, and then you wonder why you're tired. So I see our job as optimizing all of those things, and you need to get that dive into the blood work to find that out. I don't think there's any other really reputable way to do that than blood work. So I am a big proponent for regular blood work on everybody.
And I think you've also touched on the interactions that we're really needing to see. We're not reducing everything down into a single blood value to about just one. Looking at ferritin in isolation.
Exactly. If you log into my the lab that I use for metabolic balance and look at several hundred people who's had their bloods done, there's very few that didn't have reds, as in abnormal results. Very few. I wouldn't think I'd have half a dozen in 3 years that everything was fine anyway. So people are unwell. They are out of optimal range before they start. And
yeah,
it's just like you say, don't cherry pick one thing. It's like I often say to people, if we could get 5% improvement in your sleep, 5% improvement in your stress, 5% improvement in your body composition, 5% improvement in your energy, don't you think that'd be beneficial? Like, you're not trying to make everyone into Superman overnight. It's just like, let's get a bit better. And then the motivation comes to stick to the exercise or whatever else you're trying to implement into their lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Alex, you've, would you add on anything to that?
Well, I totally agree. No isolated value is a one-trick pony, as Heather has said. But the other interesting thing about bell curves is people go and get blood tests done when they're not well, as we suggested. And, you can get somebody, thyroid's your classic. There's so many, it's almost endemic, subclinical thyroid, hypothyroidism, low thyroid, or autoimmune. So you can go, and the doctor will go, are you feeling okay? And this is, people think that's what well feels like. And they go, yeah, I feel fine. But they're dragging their knuckles on the ground before they have their 3 coffees in the morning. But that to them, that's normal, so they feel fine. So they're actually inside that bell curve. But as people become less fine, that bell curve's actually flattening. They actually move in goalposts, as Heather said. Like a normal vitamin D, when we first probably started nursing in the 80s, was in the 75. A normal cholesterol was sitting up at 6 before statins were introduced. Well, now it's down to some labs even say 5.2, I think, So just because they've captured this particular demographic within the bell curve doesn't mean that they're the optimal they're the optimal ranges. And your ferritin, your vitamin D, and cholesterol is one of my particular interest points because, wouldn't you think that if it was so toxic, the liver wouldn't make it? Our bodies actually make cholesterol, right? So again, of course, there's if your cholesterol's too elevated, combined with your triglycerides and all that, it's going to be a health issue. But we've got to look at everything, not just going, okay, the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is whatever. The total cholesterol is whatever. What are the breakdowns? And this is why metabolic balance is so fine, because it looks at all of those pathology levels and it does something very clever in that algorithm that I don't really know much about, and works it out for that very individual person who's had those pathology values done at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Karen, you've looked at quite a few blood, panel results and done the analyses on them for a lot. What are the patterns that you would say are important?
With the blood markers, it's probably interesting because it's one of those, Metabolic Balance is one of those programs that really, I kind of class it as bridging scientific, holistic, realistic, all into one. And the science of the bloods, as we've discussed, we look at the bloods and there's this bell curve, there's these markers that people look at, and just being that one step away from a diseased state, but it's normal, is really quite scary, frustrating, interesting, whatever words you sort of put on it. And with metabolic balance and what we do with the pathology, it is about looking at those markers not in isolation on their own, but looking at them and the effects they're going to have on other things. And understanding that if we've got something out over here, but we can get this into balance, it's likely then going to pull other markers into balance. So it's really about taking that whole look at it. And I quite often explain it to because I get quite a lot of questions from my clients. Why the pathology? Why do we need it? Why do I need blood tests? I feel fine. And I explain it like a car. You don't wait for the engine to blow up in the car before you do something about it. You take it and get it serviced regularly. You'll get the tweaks. You'll get the oils changed. If you've got an electric car, that's obviously different nowadays, but you'll get the spark plugs done. You'll do all of those things to stop the car from blowing up. But with your bloods, you're happy to leave it until it's blown up. So metabolic balance kind of comes into that and goes, we've got all these markers that were so close to this engine blowing up, but we can pull them back into certain ranges. But bringing them all in together, it's not just one marker. We're not just looking at just ferritin. We're not looking at just vitamin D. We're looking at the effects they have on other things within the body.
Yeah. One of the situations that I see, on occasion, we see the first situation we see quite frequently in my experience is that we get the full panel of bloods, which, just to remind everybody, we're looking at full blood count, the liver health, ELFTs, we're looking at iron studies, thyroid function, we're looking at CRP for inflammatory markers, pancreatic function. we can have those blood results back that, there's only one or two things maybe that are slightly out of the standard range, but generally, most doctors would look at those results and say, yeah, this person is fine. But actually, this person is also saying, I feel terrible. I'm exhausted. I can't sleep at night. I have, my gut issues are chronic, or whatever it might be. We then can get them really into great metabolic balance, as in what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, that real balance back. We can do a repeat bloods, and then we can start to see that the pathology is, we've maybe got slightly higher cholesterol, or we've got, the liver enzymes haven't dipped as low as maybe we would like them to, but they're feeling now amazing. They've got energy, they're sleeping well, they are clear mind, they have got, losing the weight, they're getting that restoring balance back. Katie, have you seen that kind of picture come back?
I think cholesterol, definitely. I think cholesterol's so largely misunderstood, and it's looked at with in such a singular way, instead of looking at the whole picture of, it's not just the total number, it's the breakdown of everything. And, as Alex said, why would the liver make it if we didn't need it? I think people completely miss the fact that it is responsible for all of our hormones. We do sort of need it. We would be dead without it. And yet we seem to be so obsessed with getting that number so low. And I think also a lot of the time, sometimes the pathology, I often say to people, wait, do your maintenance properly, give your body, 6 months of stability before you're going to start looking at redoing bloods and expecting to see a massive shift, because any change, even a positive change, is going to produce some stress on the body. If you're releasing weight, then your liver's going to be working harder, If you're releasing weight, your cholesterol panel could very well look a little poor because there's fat being released into your body. And even things like thyroid, I've seen that dip up before it goes down, even though somebody is getting really, really good results, because you're changing the metabolism. The thyroid is, largely one of the most responsible organ for that metabolism. So it's going to be going through a lot of, stress as well. Stress is not necessarily bad. So I think, we're looking at a situation where we need to do the bloods to obviously ascertain what the plan says and what the food says is going to help with the healing process. And then we want to get to a place where the body feels healthy. And then we want to get to a place where we are stable. And there's, there's a harmony. And then we want to get those bloods redone to get a true picture of what has changed.
Yeah, that's how I see it. In the fact, it's a little bit like we're rebuilding a house, and there's going to be a bit of a messy bit where the house is really shifting and everything is being reorganized and rebalanced. But then we come out with a much nicer place to live. Alex, what would you say?
Totally. I'm having a little grin because I'm sure we've all seen the comic, and they bandied it about a lot, as Heather will attest to in our functional medicine training, where you've got this patient sitting on the doctor's bed. And no, look, I don't want to. I think doctors are fantastic. I think they do a great job. They do their best, but they also have to work with the information they're given. So you see this, you see this patient sitting on the doctor's bed covered in head to toe with a rash, and the doctor comes up and goes, "Oh no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're fantastic." Because we've forgotten that your body is telling you. Your body's telling you that something's not right. That was before any labs. Your body historically, in generations gone by, millennia. How do we not know we were not feeling well? We felt like crap. Or we felt partly like crap. So I always say first your body whispers, and they're the small symptoms. and maybe they're the subclinical pathologies, but then your body starts shouting, and that's when we get these clinical pictures. And thing we have to remember with pathology and those bell curves again, and as Karen was saying, there's so many subclinical pictures, the doctors will always say you're fine unless they can medicate. And I think this is what Heather was saying, you've got a TSH of 3.5, that's actually not optimal. But the codex says you start medicating with thyroxine to 50 micrograms once, the thyroid is this and the TH4 starts decreasing and stuff. So that's why you actually see not many, once you've got that diagnosis of Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, which is autoimmune thyroid. I had a patient once that was diagnosed 25 years ago, and no one had ever retested her antibodies because there's no medication. It's actually not the doctor's fault. They don't know any better.
No, not at all.
But there's that distinction, there is that distinction between, wellness and well-being versus life-saving medicine. We're in two different fields, and I think there's so much angst about modern medicine versus, herbal or nutritional medicine. It's like, well, we're actually doing two different things, you're not going to come and see us when you're on your deathbed, but you'll go and see your doctor kind of thing. Well, arguably that may happen.
Or if you've got your leg cut off, I'd be an accident emergency straight away. Yeah.
Exactly. And well-being is something that not everybody can do. To come and see a practitioner like us, we know we could help every Australian. Every Australian wouldn't do the work necessarily because some people won't do the physical, the movement, the eating better, the drinking water. They're happy enough to just, stop that chronic deterioration and take the, the easy route to patch it up, I suppose.
Heather, would you like to come in here?
I could think everyone recognises now that there's a big difference between acute and chronic disease, and what's killing us is chronic disease. Allegedly, 92% of all Australians die of a chronic lifestyle preventable disease. So any tool that we've got in our toolbox that helps reduce that is valuable, because we're not going to get hit by a truck or bitten by a snake or drown fishing. We're probably going to kill ourselves slowly. And more of the general public are understanding that and looking for solutions. And the food and nutrition platform is just saturated with contradictory advice. It's really, really hard to know which way to go, because if those algorithms, and even on platforms like YouTube, once you watch one video on carnivore, one video on keto, or one video on vegan, then that's all you see, and you get that sort of that skewed view. And I see people have gone the full circle. They've gone from literally vegetarian, vegan, then carnivore, and then back around again. And that's where I think programs like Metabolic Balance can come in and be really helpful for people with a history of diet shopping and orthorexia and just total confusion of what to eat, because you always come back to this is individualized. This is based on what's going on in your body at the moment. Everyone's different. Some people can eat carnivore diet and their cholesterol levels stay relatively normal. Other people can't. They fly through the ceiling, and it's dangerous that they keep going with that diet lifestyle. So whatever's in fashion seems to get all the traction, but we've got to stand here on our platform just taking that science-based, moderate view with trained professionals who have experience in the program, who can help you and hold your hand through the journey. And that is the difference between watching 3 videos on YouTube and then off you go, trying to radically change your diet without any supervision or assistance or blood work. So metabolic balance, I think, will become more and more and more relevant as a tool as this obsession with fads continues to gain momentum. And there's always, what's in it for me. It gets really confusing to know why one trend going so ballistic, but I think, I mean, I don't really understand it, but I think with things like YouTube, it's all about views anyway. So they're getting money if they get lots of views. So the more controversial and more outlandish the claims are, the more views they're going to get. And that's where we have to just keep on holding that space of moderation, educated, science-based, trained professionals. And that's where, if you really want to change things, especially as you get older, I believe that's where we should be going. And that's sort of a segue into the cost of metabolic balance, to get that professional guidance and to get that individualized program and to know the runs are on the board and is invaluable. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah, it's the education, isn't it? And it's the education when you see a person as a true individual. And now we're looking purely at the markers of an individual in front of us, and we're really working with them to get that balance. So they learn, and then they can, just have be able to be empowered moving forward. Karen, would you sort of finish things off for us on this topic for today? What would you add in just to round everything off?
So I think probably the message I'd like to get across with regards to pathology and where kind of our expertise does come in is that we are complementary. So we're not saying there's no need for a GP anymore. We're not saying there's no need for that. We're just saying that what we do and the way we analyze the bloods and we look at the bloods is getting the body back into balance, and it will complement anything that they need to do in the future with their GP. If we can get them with these markers, and like some of the markers, like you mentioned about seeing markers that don't come back afterwards, that are out of balance and things like they're still out of balance, they've done the program, that might be their body as well. And that's our job as practitioners to understand that and discuss that with them and explain, like the cholesterol. We could go on about, I'm sure we could do a whole podcast on cholesterol. But what is optimal? What is normal? We can explain all of that so that when these markers come back and these bloods come back, we've got that knowledge. And we also have the knowledge as well, which I'd also say with the pathology, to refer as well. So if we see something that is outside of our scope, then we're all trained and knowledgeable enough to actually then pass that back, which I believe every practitioner would be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it comes back to just getting that balance back in the body. And it's what we need. And we need balance in the kitchen. We need balance in the workplace. We need balance in just the choices we're making, that we're not lurching from one thing to another or seeing anything that's taboo. Because I know this is one of your, big goals. Katie, you call yourself the balanced nutritionist. That's your business, isn't it? So balance to you is absolutely key.
Yeah, and I think sort of like what Heather was alluding to before, at the moment it feels like if something's trendy, everybody will do it. And sometimes, I don't know if you've found this as a practitioner, but sometimes I feel like metabolic balance is too easy for people. They do it and they feel really good and they've got the solution, and 3 months later they're off doing something else. And it's like, why? And it's almost as though, it just seemed, I was just in this routine. It was just so habitual. It's almost like people are looking for the next thing all the time instead of just sitting with it and realizing, well, it's that simple. This is how your body's going to work effectively and fantastically. And now you can go and do your life in a really optimal state. You don't have to go and find the next crazy fad. You can just stick with it.
Yeah.
Metabolic balance is the voice of reason. That's what I always say.
In the nut world, in the nut world, the nutrition world.
The nutty world of nutrition. Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that's a wonderful place to finish today's episode. I just want to thank Karen Pyke from Inspire Wellness. A big thank you. Heather Musgrove, it's wonderful that you joined us from Live Well in Mildura. Alexandra Brewster, who's coming to us from the wonderful Whit Sundays. and Katie King from the Balanced Nutritionist. I really appreciate you joining me today. And we will be doing this again. So if you have a question you'd like us to tackle, just let me know. team@metabolic-balance.com.au is the email address. And you can also find out more about Metabolic Balance on our website, metabolic-balance.com.au. So thank you again, and we will see you next time.